15-7 run with the complimentary plays after cashing in the past two nights with the Jets over the Bills on Thursday. And last night, absolutely brilliant analysis, if I do say so myself. And I'm not kidding if you happen to read it here on the site, with why Baylor and Rice would stay easily under the posted price last night, and they did. And today I have three more complimentary plays for you, among them Michigan and Colorado, Maryland and Central Florida, plus an early look at that Florida State-Louisville game, which is the game that I can't wait to watch here among all others on today's card, to be quite honest with you. But first, a quick story. So many years ago, when I'm in college, I happened to have the opportunity to actually have my own sports talk show at Temple University, and it was a big show because, you're in Philadelphia, and at that time the market wasn't nearly as crowded, and we had quite a listening audience. So like any sports talk show, and it still continues today, book publishers would always send you books because they wanted to get their authors on air to get them interviewed. So at the time, we used to get a plethora of books coming in, and most of them, to be honest with you, the former athletes' books I could care less about. But happened to get this novel coming in, a novel by the name of Shoeless Joe. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. So I took it home, and like any book, I start reading the first chapter. Well, I was engrossed. And, an hour and a half later, 90 minutes later, babe, this book was done. I thought, what a great book. And I had the ability to interview the author. But in reading the book, I thought, there is just no way that I could really have a fascinating interview with this man. Now, I myself would love to sit down and ask him tons of questions about the plot lines, why he wrote certain things the way he did, the genesis of the story. But I thought in terms of making it good radio, I just couldn't really come up with an angle to make it, I thought, for the Philadelphia audience, because let's face it, even those days, all they wanted to do was talk about the Eagles, okay? I just couldn't figure out a way that it would really fly. So I took a pass on it. Well, for those of you that aren't familiar, Shoeless Joe turned into Field of Dreams, that hokey movie by Kevin Costner a few years later, back in 1989. And I bring this all up because the author of this book, W.P. Kinsella, passed away yesterday in Canada at the age of 82. Listen, Field of Dreams, it's a hokey movie as far as I'm concerned. I understand it's a cross between a Wonderful Life and Here Comes Mr. Jordan and Heaven Can Wait, which is also a kind of a remake of Here Comes Mr. Jordan, a little bit of Angels in the Outfield. It's all about fathers bonding with their sons. It's all about baseball, the mythology, the ideology. I understand all of that, okay? And it's a cute film. And listen, I will also tell you that I get a kick out of watching Burt Lancaster in that movie every single time. James Earl Jones overacts, okay? Every time I see him in that movie, I keep thinking, put the mask on, do the Darth Vader thing, okay? Amy Madigan, you telling me she was the only actress in Hollywood at the time that could play Kevin Costner's wife? Kevin Costner, well, he's Kevin Costner, but he plays Kevin Costner in every single movie, and that's okay, because I like Kevin Costner. I can live with that. Ray Liotta, I'm sorry. Goodfellas, I can deal with him. In that movie, And that evil little laugh, you know what I mean. You've watched that movie long enough, okay? And the rest of the movie, it's okay. It's okay, but not like one that I have to see 100 times. The book, however, if you're into reading books, this book is so much better, so much deeper. And I understand, it's very hard to adopt novels, especially one of a mythical sort of this type, into screenplays and fit it into a 92-minute film. But again, if you really are into baseball, and if you really love the film, pick up the book. It's a phenomenal book. It is so much deeper than the movie. So that's your tidbit for today. Let's get to your complimentary plays, guys. You can get all the promos, all the discounts, etc. over on the homepage. You know the drill there. Let's work them down, and let's first talk in reverse chronological order about the game between Maryland and Central Florida. So this is going to be the second straight week that Maryland's going to go down to Florida, which, listen, for a Big Ten school that's off to a 2-0 start and is putting a lot of points on the board, this is good. Fertile recruiting ground. And what better place to go than Florida, okay? So for the Terrapins, this is good. DJ Durkin in his first year has the Terrapins off to a 2-0 start, but more importantly, they're putting the points on the board, and that's what athletes are looking for, guys. I don't care whether you're in Texas looking at the spread offenses of those schools in the Big 12, or you're in Florida, you're looking to go north perhaps and escape the Sunshine State. You want to go someplace where they're putting points on the board, and that's exactly what Florida is doing. Now, they're doing it with a fifth-year senior quarterback Perry Hills, who last year was so interception prone, an injury riddled season, but this year 27 for 37 so far, 3 touchdowns in a 42-14 win at Florida International last week. He's already thrown for 336 yards in 2 games, but what's made him so effective is the fact that Maryland's using a running back by committee situation, which has been very, very productive. And Hills also is a guy who can take off as well. Had a few design runs against Florida International last week, managed to finish with 52 yards on 8 carries in that game. Now, meanwhile, Central Florida went to Michigan and got its doors blown off last week. But I mean, is that a real big surprise? They're expected to get destroyed by the Wolverines. What they didn't expect, however, is that their starting quarterback Justin Holman would leave that game after a 3 for 11 performance, good for just 19 yards because of a strained hamstring. He's been iffy all week. Supposedly, he's going to be playing tonight, but you got to wonder just how effective he is going to be. Listen, this is a Central Florida team that was 0-6 straight up at home last year, 5-14-1 against the spread in its last 20 outings as a home dog, 2-12, and its last 14 games on the board overall versus the odds makers. 0-5 against the spread versus Power 5 conference schools over the past couple of years. And again, beaten up in a physical affair in a 51-14 loss in Ann Arbor last week. I think Maryland is well worth the investment laying the 10 points in this game. Now, let's talk about Michigan today. Michigan is playing Colorado, and it's kind of unusual in a non-conference game to find a Power 5 school like Colorado visiting another Power 5 school like Michigan in a one-off game, meaning there's no return trip for Michigan going to Boulder. And why is that? Because for the Buffaloes, it's a guaranteed payday game here today. They took the money, and today they're going to take the loss as far as I'm concerned in this particular contest, and I hope it's worth the $1.4 million the Colorado athletic program is going to get for this loss. Listen, I know Colorado comes in here with the 2 big wins, and I know that they've run like crazy in their first 2 wins. 260 yards and 262 yards rushing in their first 2 wins, and I know that Michigan had some real problems stopping the run against Central Florida last week. But you remember what I just told you, how they demolished Central Florida last week. Were they really that focused on Central Florida last week? Do you think so when they put 51 points on the board and won by 140? I don't think so. I think Colorado, with that 2-0 record, is going to get their attention. I think that Michigan defense, number 11 in the country a year ago, is even better this season. I think that Michigan will definitely show up here today, and the defense will put the stops on this Central Florida team. And listen, Michigan offensively, 51-14 over Central Florida, 63-3 over Hawaii. The quarterback, Wilson, spiked 25 for 37, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns against Central Florida because the Knights dared the Wolverines to run last week. They stacked the box, 8-man fronts. Well, Wolverines took up the dare, and I just gave you the quarterback's numbers. He has 7 touchdowns, 457 yards passing in 2 games. Now, the Buffaloes beat up Idaho State 56-7. They beat up Colorado State 44-7. Big deal. Now they're on the road. They're in Ann Arbor. Oh, it's going to be a tough day for them. And frankly, Michigan only an 18-point favorite. You know, I think what's happened here, it's a matter of perception. You're seeing Colorado off to the 2-0 start. I just gave you the finals of their 2 games, 44-7, 56-7, against a couple of cupcakes. Reality, right? Colorado State and Idaho. So what happens is the perception is that Colorado is actually better than it is. And consequently, you're getting a suppressed line. In reality, this line, I think, should be 23 and a half points. So to me, it's line value going with Michigan in this game. Now, the game that I talked about today that I can't wait to see is Louisville, Florida State. These 2 teams are just going to go up and down the field. Who's going to win? I don't know who's going to win. I don't care who's going to win. I'm looking at the total on this game, 69 points. Could Syracuse stop Louisville on the road? No, they couldn't. Well, why is Florida State going to be able to stop Louisville at home? Could Mississippi stop Florida State when they played in Orlando a couple of weeks ago? No, they couldn't. Well, why should I expect Louisville and Bobby Petrino's defense, even though it's such a good defense, be able to stop the Seminoles when they come to town? These 2 teams are so offensively explosive. Now, this is not going to be Texas Tech and Arizona State from last Saturday night when those 2 teams scored. I think it was 894 points was the final combined score between these 2. But 69 points? Seriously? 69 points? Does this game not to you have like 41-38 written all over it? I mean, this does not put me in mind of a game that's going to be 28-24, 17-14. I mean, this is going to be one of those pinball battles up and down the field. So again, I hope Louisville wins. Okay? Really do. But again, I'm just hoping somebody scores like crazy, and I think that's the way to play that game. One more game to briefly touch upon, and that's going to be the Alabama-Ole Miss game. Listen, guys, we know Alabama's in double revenge here, okay? And to be honest with you, I like Alabama because, listen, you saw what happened at the end of last week's game when Nick Saban went bonkers on Lane Kiffin. Because after a fumble by the offense allowed their opponent to have great field position, and then the defense gave up a touchdown in that Western Kentucky win, which was 38-10, the final score. He went bonkers. And if you don't think that was a cold, calculated move by Saban, who then went on to say that he was embarrassed and it was the most disappointing game ever in a win in his entire coaching career, not just in Tuscaloosa, but his entire coaching career, you don't think this was all planned? Nick Saban ain't no fool. Nick Saban knows he's in double revenge and he's going to Oxford today. Nick Saban knows what he's doing here. He's motivating his team. These guys are going to come fired up today. They better come fired up and be ready to play, however, maybe in perhaps muddy conditions. What worries me in this game, even though I like Alabama and double revenge, is the fact that, listen, you always got to give Mississippi a throwing chance because Andy Kelly carved up that defense a year ago. The defense is even better this season, but again, Kelly is going to be throwing the ball nonstop. Now, where I think Alabama has the advantage here is that you've seen that this Mississippi defense, it's not much. It lost too much talent to the NFL a year ago. But man, that's a big number, 11.5 points. Could you play it in a teaser? Could you take Alabama down to maybe a 6.5 point favorite? Yeah, you could, but that's not a game that I would particularly want to tease. So, again, a little lean towards Alabama in this contest, but a game that, even though I loved Alabama and gave you the Crimson Tide in their blowout win against USC, this is one I would say stay away from. That'll do it, guys. I wish you well, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this one more time.